Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. Welcome home, y'all. Welcome home. This is episode 14 of Native Land Pod, where we give you our breakdown of all things politics and culture. But most importantly, we give it to you straight, no chaser. We are your hosts, Tiffany Cross, Angela Rye, and Andrew Gillum. And I got to kick it off with a question before we get into anything. Angela, who's the black sheep?
Where's the black sheep?
I'm the black sheep.
No, here's the black sheep.
I'm the black sheep.
Here's the black sheep.
No, but here's the black sheep would be third person.
Andrew,
yes.
the song
just go with what we said.
It's just arrogant. Third person, Donald Trump,
here's the
and
black
the way
sheep.
Donald.
You can
but you're Donald.
You
used to say the way I.
You can point and be like, here's the black sheep.
Here's the black sheep.
It's too late. It's
way too late.
Okay, we missed the moment. Then let's go.
The point of this was Andrew, everybody, is wearing a black sheep t-shirt.
And we tried to redefine.
We engaged in a conversation about
a heated political debate.
Yes, not political,
is a black
cultural.
sheep a loner? Is it pejorative? Where did we land on this?
Andrew reclaimed it.
I reclaim it. I mean,
what do you mean?
I think because we're not like everybody else,
Why are you so close to the
you
mic?
strike out that you're different, that you are set apart, that more people are black sheep than not.
Is it giving?
doesn't have
It's giving
to be
David from the Bible.
a little bit.
Yeah, that's how you feel.
A little bit.
Okay.
All right.
So
Come on,
but y'all can help
generation.
me work to redefine this thing. I'm sort of at the nascent level.
Well, we had a full 20 minutes.
I'm talking about the
before.
listeners.
Is this your brand, or do you just?
No,
you
it's not. It's not my brand, and I won't be calling out anybody's brand right now. But if you made this shirt, claim it.
Where's the black sheep? All right,
right across
this or that.
All righty, guys.
Or you can get with that.
You can get with this.
You can get with that.
You can get with this.
And you can get with that.
Or you can get with this.
Because this is where it's at. I hope we don't get copyright infringement for this.
Oh, it's all good.
Welcome home, everybody. Just want to say, stay tuned to the end of this podcast because we happen to be seated.
Not the hair flip.
Well, I did that on purpose. Stay
This for the
tuned
camera.
for the end of this podcast because we happen to be seated among Emmy nominee. But stay tuned. Nobody say anything. We'll get into that later. Welcome home, everybody.
Welcome home.
It's a beautiful day in the Big Apple, and we're together. So let me tell you where the train is taking you today.
Oh.
No thanks.
Engine number
Where?
9.
Engine number 9.
On
this
the New York Transit line.
We gotta cut it out. We really
Okay,
gotta
the train did actually fall off the track because no thanks. That is what nearly half the Republican governors in this country are saying
Pick it up,
to a
Angela.
program
Pick it up.
to feed hungry kids. Well, some of them are saying pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Yes.
So we're going to get into that a little later. And I have a question for the audience that I want you to answer later. If a political ad were made for you, tailor-made for you, what does that look like? What issues would they speak to? We're going to talk about that. I want to hear you guys talk about that too. And how many of you all are still down with your day ones? I feel like we're day ones. We've been friends a long time. We're still rocking with the same crew for decades. So I kind of have attitude, no new friends. But I do a little bit.
No, you don't.
Well, I'm warm to people, but it's hard. You and I have known each other a long
true.
time. It's hard to build that same intimacy with somebody who I've known, for decades.
Yeah.
So we can be friends, but it looks different. But why I'm asking that is because I wonder if the Democratic Party feels the same way.
They definitely don't. And
Right.
Tiffany doesn't either. I want to have that argument later.
Okay,
do
fine.
it.
Fine. That's true. I'll try to say no new friends, but I
You
am
lying.
kind of like, do you want to be my best friend? So that is maybe
Lord.
true.
Where did you grow up? What shoes did you
She's
wear when you were
curious,
little?
Angela.
She
Go ahead.
is. It's nice.
Curious.
It's not.
This is
It's not.
true. This is
I'm
true.
more no new friends than she is.
Yeah.
But I appreciate Angela's no new friends because I kind of like shelter.
But
in it.
Angela don't mean it either. She embraces
That's true.
everybody.
That's a lie.
That is
Which I love.
true.
That's a lie.
No, you do. You.
Well, I'll tell you, I definitely don't want as my new friend, and that's these politically homeless Republicans talking about. So
Lord.
the point is we're going to get into that. Well, the Democrats say no new friends to them. We're going to see. But lastly, I want to say this, guys, don't reject me or make records to disrespect me, blatant or indirectly. That's a bar. That's a bar.
That is a barn. Who'd you take it from?
Well, I'm not going to
Wow.
say. I want the viewers. I want our audience to drop a comment and let me know. Finish that bar for me if you can, because we're going to get into
Attribution.
rap beefs. The latest with J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. But what does that have to do with politics? We'll tell you, so stay tuned to the end of the podcast. And all right, to my producer, Nick, make like your DJ Khaled and drop that beat.
Oh, major key alert. Pew, 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 pew.
On a more serious note,
Yes.
honestly, imagine somebody offering you $2.5 billion to feed food insecure children.
Yeah.
So, and if they are offering you this and your response is nah, or is it nah? Nah or nah, either one. That's what half the Republican governors are saying to this program. So let me just explain to the audience before we get into this. So Congress passed a new bipartisan $2.5 billion program. Can we just pause for a second and say how rare it is for Congress to pass anything
yes.
that's bipartisan?
Right.
And so the program is known as Summer EBT, and the program will provide families about $40 a month per child who receives reduced price meals at school.
Or free.
Or free meals, exactly. Thank you. So reduced or free meals. Every Democratic governor will distribute these grocery cards this summer, but half the Republican governors are saying no. And these red state refusals will keep children, will keep aid from about 10 million children. So that's a really serious thing for hungry kids. We're talking about this because this is an example of the federal government allocating funds, but your locally elected officials are operating autonomously. And so I just want to kick us off with and hear from some of these such governors. We're going to start off with South Carolina's Republican Governor, Henry McMaster. Let's hear what he has to say about the program.
We already have programs to provide food for people below a certain income. We already have that. Also, keep in mind we have food banks galore. At some point, we must end these pandemic programs. The pandemic is over.
All right, that was Republican Governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster. I'm really interested in you guys about this. Angela, you have a unique lens because you worked on Congress, so you can speak to how this is passed bipartisan and also just your opinion on it. And Andrew, being a locally elected official, this is very frustrating because so many people will say, oh, well, Biden didn't do this. And it's like they don't make the connection with the federal government is allocating this, but these Republican governors are saying no thanks. What do you all think about this?
Well, I mean, I'll let Angela take it from the federal, but real quick, the governor who was just speaking, Governor McMaster's, his state, has a 12% or so rate of children in poverty. What a luxury that is, that you can be the governor and say, we got food banks galore, yet 12% of children, not adults, not families, but children, go without food. Many children, and I've come to experience this. I mean, I was one of those kids who was on free lunch when I was in school. When you didn't have that lunch, you didn't eat. You ate breakfast, you ate lunch, and if you were in an after-school program that was largely subsidized, you got a little bit of snack after school and hopefully a little bit more to take home with you as you exited the door. And that would have been your meal until you come back to school the next day. And over the weekend, all across this country, millions of kids go hungry because of the absence of food. And I'm sorry, y'all. I believe this is true in Gaza, and I believe it ought to be true here in the United States, that food is a right and that everybody ought to have access to sustenance so long as you live.
It's more than a right. It's a human need.
It's a human need.
I love that you made the point about you can't learn when you're hungry. So before I go to you, Angela, there was another Republican governor from Nebraska, Governor Jim Allen, who initially declined this program to feed hungry children in his state. So take a listen to what he said, and then I'll tell you what happened on the other side of the soundbite.
It's another form of welfare that's just simply disagreeing. It's not doing our kids any good.
Governor Jim Allen was confronted by children who said, over the summer, I don't eat sometimes because I don't get these meals, Angela. And thankfully, he reversed course. But why does it take children? Like, why do we have to put these children out to advocate to these governors to do just what's right, I think?
I feel like we're in a time where human beings are lacking conscience to score political points. And I think that has always been the case, but it's even greater now. I was looking at the data for the electronic benefit transfer for the summer program, and 5 of the poorest states in the country, the states with the highest poverty rates, have said no to this program. Yeah. That's Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, which is the poorest, Oklahoma, and Texas. And that tells you how morally depraved, frankly, these governors are, especially when you look at kids. We're talking about not a lot of money. It's $40 a month supplementation for these kids and $120 for the whole summer. Yeah. That's it. Why would you say no to that type of support? And then here's the worst part. They're saying that they don't support handouts. They support handouts.
Sure they do.
It just depends on whose hand is out.
Right. Yeah. Corporations, for one.
Yeah.
And
they support it in their own. They support it in their own states when the money's coming down to do what they want it to do. Right.
Yeah.
Bridge money. You remember how all them folks voted against Biden's legislation and then showed up at ribbon cuttings and taking credit? Their donors are the construction companies that are building many of these facilities, bridges, homes, public infrastructure. I just want to say real quick, I inverted.
Don't have any place on where, like, they don't decide what family they're born into, but you're going to punish the kids?
Completely.
Right.
I just, to correct myself, South Carolina, I said 12%. Inverted. It's 21% of the children in South Carolina are food insecure and poor. Yeah. Governor Allen, 12% in his state find themselves in that very same condition. I guess the big thing for me is a lot of these guys are using red tape. They're saying with government funding, these governors are saying it comes with strings. So we don't want the strings that are coming. It's not enough juice for the squeeze. Even going so far, let me say the governor of Oklahoma said that this program comes with strings. And by the way, there are only a few children who are going to be impacted. The governor of Oklahoma should know that a few children in his state represents 403,000 children who will not have access to summer food this summer, thanks to his intransigence and opposition, as Angela already pointed out, for political reasons only. There's nothing to be gained. There's
That's
nothing
a deplorable
to be gained.
response, but I think the most asinine of these responses that was like a slap in the face to literally hungry children. This is the so-called pro-life crowd, as they call themselves. And I always say they care about fetuses. They don't care about actual children. The Republican governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, her concern was this might lead to childhood obesity. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Like, don't feed the kids. They going to get fat?
Yeah. Right.
But those are the kinds of things that they reach for. And y'all know this is part of the culture that's playing out in states all over the country where Republican governors in this, quote, anti-woke campaign against wokeness, the welfare state, so on and so forth, are engineering their voters to believe that anyone who's on EBT, government assistance, is abusing the program.
Yeah.
Never mind that the majority of folks who are on those programs are white Americans.
Yep.
The image that they often portray are barefoot, poor, black families, mothers with children with no fathers. And that simply isn't the representation of who is the beneficiary, the majority beneficiary of these programs. And by the way, when it comes to black families, the majority of these beneficiaries, actually all of them, are working. Many of them are working around the clock such that they can't pick up their kids. How do I know this, by the way, for those who are asking? Because it's a requirement. You got to work if you're going to receive these benefits. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are also making the choice that I am not going to take a job because the time I spend on the job doesn't earn me enough to even put food on the table. And so they make the choice to put their children's need for food to eat, sustenance, before their own ability to work. And I just think it's a shame that we are stigmatizing even further poor families.
Historically, it was Ronald Reagan, the original Make America Great Again candidate, who ushered in this racialized debate around welfare when, as you point out, statistically, more white Americans were on it. Before we move on, I just want to say, Angela gave you a few states. I want to list all the states, thanks to our research assistant, Lolo, who says these are the states
who said no?
That opted out of the EBT program: Alabama, Alaska, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, and Wyoming. Shame on all of you.
But also, not just shame, but if you live in these states or you have family members who live in these states, I know we're not at calls to action yet, but I think it's important here for y'all to know we are not just complaining about this. Yeah. We are telling you to call the governor's office and let them know that you do not stand with them on this.
That's right.
Nonsense,
as
Tiff would say.
It's nonsense.
And I'll just say lastly on this, the money is going to be spent why the hell would you reject it from your state? For many of these people, if you're living in these states, you're likely a donor state to the federal government. If you're in Texas and Florida and Georgia and some of the others that are listed here, you're sending more money up than you're bringing back.
Yeah.
And you're letting states, who are much smaller, really Bigfoot, over your tax dollars coming home to feed the children in your own state.
Yeah. And if you're declining hungry children food, you're a jackass. All right. We got to take a quick break.
We'll allow
Yeah.
the cuss word.
It's
Mama,
necessary. We have a quick break. We're going to be right back after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. Welcome home, everybody. Welcome back to Native Land Pod. So I want to throw out an interesting number. Political ad spending will hit $12.32 billion this year. Now, that's according to eMarketer. That's a market research company. And for context, that's nearly 3 times what it was in 2016. And I remember hearing the numbers in 2016 thinking that's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, and they keep increasing. I don't even know how to stop it. But I'm curious from you guys, one, where are people seeing political ads? Because I feel like as more people are cord cutters and not watching linear television, where are these ads being placed? And two, have any of us ever really been swayed by a political ad? Andrew, you've cut political ads. So curious, even the decision to go negative and attack an opponent versus what you say about yourself, is that an impactful ad?
Yeah.
And for our audience, I would love to hear from you guys on what a political ad would look like if it was catered to you and spoke to the issues and it had validators that you could resonate with. So political ads became a really big issue in the 80s. As there was more broadcast and more opportunities to reach voters, people took advantage of that. One particular ad that really set the tone, I think, for a lot of Black Americans, was the Willie Horton ad. So when political ads gained more prominence, it was with the race between George H.W. Bush and Democratic candidate Michael Dukakis. So let's play the Willie Horton ad. And so for our viewers who are listening and not watching, Willie Horton is, of course, a Black man who was a convicted criminal. And form your own opinion after this ad. Let's take a listen.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
Obviously, that crime is grotesque, but to put this Black man out there, it was sending a different signal to a lot of voters at that time. And of course, George H.W. Bush tripled spending. He built prisons.
You just called him H.W. Bush.
H.W. Bush.
Well, when you triple spending, you deserve to have your name,
Yes.
annihilated.
H.W. Bush.
H.W. Bush was building prisons and put a lot of money, really, into a very punishing criminal justice system. But
helped to create the industrial complex that we
the
still
prison
live
industrial
today.
complex,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I want to hear from you guys because there's so as the decades have gone on, there are so many other issues with political ads. One, now we have AI. How might that impact political ads? Now we have 1,000 things pulling at our attention, from streaming to digital to gaming. So where are we seeing these ads? And will we come to a point where political ads don't even matter anymore? Will it just be a game of information and disinformation? So I don't know. Andrew, you are a candidate.
So just real quick on the where are we seeing these? I see it every time I open my phone, go into,
on what though? Where?
Ads. Any social media site, any website.
Willie Horton.
No, not the Willie Horton.
I just wanted to know what happened.
Obviously.
I just wanted to see what happened to him. I have an update.
Oh, you want to check? Okay.
So what happened to Willie Horton?
Yeah, but let me. The political space is increasingly moving, I think, more toward the corporate advertising space, including engaging many of these previously exclusively corporate advertising firms to bring them on the political side and say, how do we reach these folks now that we are not dealing with 30 million Americans sitting down at one time looking at television, on the tube, if you will. They're looking at it anywhere. They're graphing information from everywhere. And just because folks aren't sitting at home looking at traditional television does not mean, no one should conclude that doesn't mean they're not getting information and news, some of it fake news, others of it legitimate news, every single place they go, right? And so politics has to be there as well. I personally have the opinion that these ads serve to be more of a proffer for your supporters. It helps them hear your message and then go out and share it with others. It
So
gives
more
them
motivational.
confidence. It's motivational, and I think it helps to rally your base. It's sort of like
It's
political
not going to
campaign
sway
signs.
anybody's mind.
I'm sure there's a lot of research and pollsters out there. I don't necessarily believe that. The people who I hear from when my campaign signs weren't on a street corner were my supporters. The people who I heard from when my ads weren't up in a certain part of the state were my supporters saying, we keep seeing all, DeSantis ads, but we don't see any of your ads. They weren't coming from, the opposition saying, I wonder what does Andrew Gillum have to say about what DeSantis just said.
Well,
but,
just because you brought that up, can I play one? Stay tuned because we're going to play this ad, but I also want to update on Willie Horton that Angela just found out. But I want to stick to what you said because DeSantis, honestly, in 2018, I thought he was such a weirdo, and he put out this super weird, cringy ad where he is, for the folks who are listening and not watching, where he's talking to his children, and his wife is kind of like the voiceover of the ad. It's so cringe. So let's take a quick listen to that. I apologize to the viewers who have to suffer through this, but I think it's important so you can see what kind of ads we're looking at. This was Ron DeSantis, Republican gubernatorial candidate in Florida in 2018. Let's take a look.
Everyone knows my husband Ron DeSantis is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Ron DeSantis for governor.
Very good and crazy.
I mean,
play the whole thing.
that's so. But my whole times have changed.
But
right?
aside from the message, though, I have to say, I cringed with that ad because I know the pains that my wife and I went through when we talked about when we would have our kids out on the trail, how and what was appropriate as it relates to cameras around the children. And certainly, if they were ever to be used in a political ad, could you imagine, real committed parents deciding to sit their children down in the middle of the most hotly contested political debate, build a wall bigotry. Or not build a wall, and say, yeah, we're building that wall. Trump, now a convicted or accused and certainly found guilty, liable of molesting and sexually harassing women. We all know what he did when he was president. I mean, but this
came out after the grab him by the video. There
isn't even a Democrat I want to sit down with my children in a political ad. And I don't say that against, to
anybody.
But that's how you feel about your family. You want to protect them as best you can. Certainly in a hot political debate. And to sit down with your kids in the middle of a hateful ad and a hateful debate around building a wall or not, to me is just... It's wild. I saw it. I thought it was disgusting when I saw it. I think it's disgusting now.
Well, the thing is, though, I feel like sometimes these ads don't speak to us. I feel like the Democratic Party, I feel like they do kind of run these ads with majority white audiences, like they're trying to speak to them. And I think about what if we wanted to hear from somebody, what would ads look like if they truly targeted multi-generational black voters the same way they do white voters?
I'm gonna tell you one thing, it ain't gonna sound like a Popeyes commercial. That's what's irritating to me. When it gets close to election time, it's so frustrating. It's like, let's break out the gospel choir, be at the cookout. It is so pejorative and typical, and it is really, really frustrating. I think that there are ways that ads can and should be motivational. I think that it doesn't need to look like indoctrination like what we just saw with Ron DeSantis and his kids. It also doesn't need to look like, what was her name? I'm not a witch.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that
She's
candidate.
so
Let
weird.
me find her.
She's so
that
weird.
was weird.
She was in New York.
Christine O'Donnell, maybe. I think is her name.
That's it.
But it was just so bizarre. Like now when people think of political ads, I think they immediately think of, I am not a witch. But there are several places where people can be reached. I think a lot of us spend too much time on social media. They have political ads that run on there now, and they aren't just targeted to supporters. It's people that you don't agree with. YouTube runs a ton of ads, streamers, and certainly podcasts. People, when they tune into this podcast, will hear political ads. This moment where we're taking to review political ads is not that. But to that point, I think that going back to this Willie Horton ad with H.W. Bish It's fascinating because it really began, I think, my exposure to what the boogeyman strategy was all about. Republicans typically use an approach in political spaces, in debates, at the State of the Union now that has become call and response, where they will find someone where they've seen the Democratic Party or their opponent fail and hold that person out as the example of what politics will look like under this person's tenure and under their watch. So Willie Horton, what I didn't realize was Michael Dukakis had actually supported a furlough policy. Well, he pushed it while he was governor. And it was, it actually was a law that was passed by a Republican governor in 1972. And I never, the thing wasn't a life update about Willie Horton. I was just like, oh my God, we would have never known that. And even when you hear Willie Horton, you immediately think about Michael Dukakis. That is the successful implementation of a boogeyman strategy. We typically don't play that way. Progressives, black folks, and the Democratic Party doesn't play that way. And I think it's to our own detriment. We often sit on the opposite side of folks who have several boogeymen. Several, Donald Trump's boogeyman is how many people died from COVID in the United States while he waited to respond to the pandemic, right? The people who borrowed PPP money and didn't pay it back and it was fraudulent, they were following their leader. Even if they were black folks or brown folks, they were following their leader. They're thinking, I can be invincible. This man has stolen from a gazillion people, gone bankrupt, did all kinds of things. I can follow my leader. He should be a boogeyman. The people that followed his model should be boogeymen. He is the boogeyman of the Central Park Five.
Right.
We don't ever take that approach. We try to go high. Michelle Obama, we need to be low to the flow. I'm sorry. And it's not because we're trying to be mean or evil. It's because there are a gazillion examples of what can go wrong under this leadership. If we're not going to be telling the successful stories and telling showing accomplishments, then we need to go low.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The thing is, a lot of the question is,
with
who are you talking? Who are you talking to?
But just really quickly,
who are you talking to? Why you telling me in trouble? Who are you talking to?
But who are you talking to? Because that's the big question around these ads. Who are you trying
Who's
to
your
speak
audience?
to? Who's the audience?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the campaigns are making a choice between two things: a person who they know is going to vote, but are not yet sure who that person may vote for, versus a person who might look like they're part of your demographic, yet they don't have a high propensity for voting. So do I cut an ad to inspire, motivate, and move that person who is unlikely to vote based off their record, and trust that my ad is going to be what then puts them over, moves them closer to getting out to vote? Or do I go after that voter, i.e. Nikki Haley? I know we're moving into that conversation. The Nikki Haley disenfranchised,
politically homeless voters,
sort of voter who's sitting out there saying, I voted every cycle, and I voted Republican every cycle, but Trump is a non-starter for me. I cannot vote for him. So the president then makes a decision. Do I then go for that voter who has a habit of voting and likely will go in and vote, even if they don't vote for president, may vote for everything underneath the presidency? Should I spend money trying to get that person to go in and cast a ballot for me? That's largely the choice that campaigns are making. And I will tell you, when I ran my primary campaign,
what choice did you make?
We went toward building a new base, right?
Yes.
And I think it was,
and you could tell.
That's how,
because the media largely discounted you, Andrew.
Of course they did.
And we did not.
And guess what? They weren't showing up in the polling, right?
Yeah.
On the day of the primary, the day before the primary, the last poll that came up prior to the primary race had me running 5th out of 5 candidates.
Wow.
5th out of 5, because they were looking at all the traditional news sources and who had heard of me and that kind of thing. Well, we were putting billboards up in neighborhoods that had been hadn't seen a new billboard in 10 years.
Yeah, discarded,
and so
ignored.
Ignored, discarded. So our strategy wasn't on the mainstream media. We used some other tactics that I could afford.
They're so out of touch. That showed how they're out of touch. But I love that you brought up the fact that it was something you can afford. People don't understand how these media buys are very expensive. We just said $12.23 billion, billion with a B dollars. Andrew, I just want to say, I think your campaign ads, it was innovative. We had seen similar things with Barack Obama, but that was at a national level. At a local level with a community as diverse as Florida. And it's not just diverse. There are within Black people, it's diverse.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about Black Afro-Latinos, when you think about Haitians, when you think about, different
All of
immigrants.
it.
Right,
Literally
exactly.
did.
I want to just really quickly, if we can, because this was a political ad that resonated with me. And I know we're coming up on 420 this month, guys.
Yes.
But this ad in particular, I thought was very audacious and innovative and courageous, for sure. So I want to play this ad from Gary Chambers, who was running for Senate.
Yes.
Yes, Senate in Louisiana. And for the people who are listening and not watching, he is just sitting in an empty field, lighting something in his hand that he's about to smoke. Let's take a listen.
Every 37 seconds, someone is arrested for possession of marijuana. Since 2010, state and local police have arrested an estimated 7.3 million Americans for violating marijuana laws, over half of all drug arrests. Black people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana laws than white people. States waste $3.7 billion enforcing marijuana laws every year. Most of the people police are arresting aren't dealers, but rather people with small amounts of pot, just like me. I'm Gary Chambers, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
I
Love it.
love that ad.
Love it.
First of all,
It's
if you can't
awesome.
see that, we were just commenting, that is a pretty big blunt in this man's hand. But beyond, it is not about like I'm encouraging you or discouraging you from using marijuana. It is a political issue, a state resource issue, and he's saying this is what you all doing and normalizing. This is what I do. The same way you may go home and have a glass of wine. This is what I do. That spoke to so many people who said, yes, this ad speaks to me. I feel seen. And so he lost that that Senate race. Unfortunately, he was running against Kennedy, right?
Yeah,
The Republican, and the Republican won because he had deeper pockets. But just the fact that he was saying, yes, all of you folks who look like me, who might indulge in this, I am bold enough to say, I see you, I speak to you, I recognize you as a valid voting bloc that I want to engage. So I like
Gary
it.
also got hit pretty hard. I think some of the folks who are the worst offenders of respectability politics are Black folks.
Yes,
so
it drives me crazy.
So especially in the South, there were folks in Louisiana who are like, how dare he do this? This is too risky. He doesn't come from the same pedigree. Someone who's a rising star through the traditional ranks. He did not have the support of, kind of the Democratic bench. Where are you? You disrupted the bench that we actually aren't investing in building. So, I love this ad. And one of the things I love even more is Gary took that loss and used it as wind beneath his wings. We actually were just touching base recently because Gary started a civics project where he's going around the country to talk to people about how to get involved. And every single level of government is called Civics for the People.
I love that.
Yeah.
And he is literally training people in multiple states. I was like, I see a partnership opportunity on the horizon with Native Land Pod.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Gary.
Civics for the People.
I gotta say how I came to know him is that a
School
lot of
board
people,
meetings.
yes,
School board
he
meetings.
went
Yes.
viral
School
because he
board
got up and he
meetings.
said, "I'm gonna talk about you, Connie." I don't
And
know
he
who
went,
Connie
but
is,
he went there
he went
regularly,
in.
right?
Yes.
He was a mainstay at
Yes.
in the county where he lived, going to the school board. Connie didn't want to hear about some of the racial issues that were happening. Connie is online shopping for clothes during the public speaking part. And he called her out. And then the camera zooms in on Connie's phone. And I'm talking about you too, Connie. But it was so real. It was so authentic.
Yeah.
What I love about the ad, and I think it accomplished 2 things. One, he used the dramatics of something you would not see on television, right?
Yeah.
Somebody smoking
60
what
Minutes
still
clock
is, I
in the
think, the
background.
majority of states an illegal substance. And federally, it's still
And the ad
considered.
was 37 seconds when he was saying every 37 seconds. It was so
intentional with regard to the timing, intentional with regard. I'm going to use something that is totally taboo to grab your attention. And while you're looking at me, I'm going to spit facts.
Spit facts, drop
And
bars.
so if you were a viewer, I guarantee you did not turn the television.
Yeah.
You didn't flip past that ad when you saw
matter how you felt.
what was taboo and like no one does this.
Yeah.
Right?
Be bold. Talk
He
to
did
us.
it and he reached an audience. The problem, Angela, you point out a lot, the respectability politics.
And the fact that, but Angela's point was that Black folks are the ones who are
And
like,
I get
we don't act like that in front of Mr. Charlie. And it's like, you gotta
but
let
I also
that go.
get it. I also get it. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
always
fear.
just not in front of Mr. Charlie. It's also we've worked too hard and come too far to break out of a box of what they have put us in, or
Yeah.
what they make of us, or what they think we are. And the truth is like everybody else, we are a vast, colorful array of people.
Yes.
We're not a monolith,
Yes.
as is no one. And so we have a right to express ourselves in whatever ways.
That's right.
But because folks had to go about it the hard way, and I have respect for it,
Yeah.
and pay homage to it. But it doesn't mean that what got us here is going to keep us here. And certainly
no,
it
it
doesn't
will
mean what
keep
got
us
us
here.
here.
Right.
It
won't
won't take us
keep us
further.
Y'all are saying the
That's right.
same
But
thing,
it
but saying it
won't.
differently.
They are
Yeah.
retracting.
Yeah.
You
That's
understand?
right.
We are in
That's
a
right.
generation now where rights are not being expanded, which has
No.
been the American experiment since its founding, was to buy and buy and buy, expand access, expand rights. We should have had it on day one. Nonetheless, they got to it day 400.
Can
Whatever.
I-
Maybe day 400.
Yeah, but
Year
the point
400.
is that folks still assume that we are playing polite on all sides. That manual was ripped up a long time ago.
Burned.
Long
It
time
was
ago.
burned, ripped up.
We don't want to hear how well you can work with folks across the aisle. That's not the move.
Well, one,
to
it's
talk
not
about.
true.
Actually wish that were the case, and
I wish it were too. It's
It
not-
was
it's
like
just
that
not
when I
true.
worked on the Hill. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, not on everything, but a little bit.
There were
Now it's
Republican
com-
offices you could work with.
Now they can't even work with each other.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
Democrats.
but they're using the tools of government, the tools that we have given them toward the end goal of making our lives better. They're using them, weaponizing them against a political opponent. Take the theft of the Supreme Court justice under Barack Obama. A year
exactly
out
what it
from a president's
Yeah.
reelection
Yeah.
campaign, that we are not going to entertain a sitting,
Yeah.
sworn in commander in chief, which means up until the moment he is no longer president at noon
Yeah.
on January 21st, whatever,
McConnell,
19th, whatever.
the Reaper, yeah.
But until that day, you're president. And so what member of the Congress gets to abridge your powers as president of the United States because they determined you are a year out from an election?
Right.
And
They
you don't
probably
get the
watched a
ability to
political
resign.
ad that encouraged them to do
Exactly.
this, to
Well,
that
can
point.
True
speaking of political, can I just self-promote for a minute? Because I think to the point how the mainstream media completely discarded you. And I know you guys every week, I
Or
feel like
and
I'm
discounted.
and discounted.
For
Yes. Every week I'm like dumping on the media because I feel like the mainstream media is just utter trash. It's garbage. And I think there is something that when Native Land Pod debuted, we debuted #1 across all categories, not just news, across all categories. And I think there's something to people saying, you speak to me. You speak about issues I care about. You make this conversation interactive. I can tune in and you're explaining things to me. You're informing me. You're not just giving your opinions.
Yeah.
And I think that says something about where the American body politic is.
For sure.
And while the mainstream media outlets, political ads, all of these, they cater to a shrinking demographic, we audaciously speak to a growing demographic. And I encourage more people. There should be people in every pocket
I agree.
of all,
I agree.
ethnicities. There will be no racial majority in this country in 2044. So this propensity to cater to white voters, I think people are going to have to adjust. I want to get to something you said, though, and kind of shift this a little bit because you were talking about the Nikki Haley voters. And that is the whole thing about these new friends. Because as people are shifting from the Republican Party and they feel like politically homeless, I do wonder about that. And I think that deserves some of our attention here. Will Democrats, not just in political ads, because we're seeing that, Angela, you talked, I looked up, Angela and I, we were all together last night. Angela rolled up on us with her camera. We'll drop that behind the scenes footage later.
Oh, yeah.
But we were talking, we ended up hanging out last night and we were talking about this memo that came out with President Joe Biden going after these Nikki Haley voters. I think I have it. Angela, you may know more than I do on this. But essentially, the Biden administration
Campaign.
Yeah, the Biden campaign, forgive me. They are spending more than $1 million on an ad campaign across digital platforms in battleground states. It was part of a 6-week, $30 million ad buy after the president's March 7th State of the Union, going after some of these Nikki Haley voters and some of the Republican voters who feel politically homeless. I find this very frustrating because nationally, Democrats have not won the majority white vote since 1964. That was the year that Lyndon Johnson ran, and even he lost that white Southern coalition to Barry Goldwater. So on the other side of this break, I want us to pick up on that conversation and talk about that. So stay with us, audience at home. We're going to dig into that. Will Democrats shift to accommodate GOP voters? That's on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, Native Land Pod. My name is Kyle. I'm from New Jersey. So I have a question because there's always this rhetoric, specifically in the black community, about how Democrats don't do enough for black people and how they constantly take our votes for granted. And my question is, why is it that the Democrats don't display what they have done for the black community more?
All right, Kyle, thank you for that question. Is right. I love when our viewers are like right on target with what we're talking about. So, Kyle, we're about to get into that very subject about GOP voters and the Democratic Party trying to make inroads with them and not talking enough about what they do for black folks. So thank you for that. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about this shift of, politically homeless GOP voters. And we could make the argument that black folks are also politically homeless.
Correct.
We've been squatting in this house because it's a raging storm outside, but we are homeless too. And so given
Squatting
this,
in the house that we built. Imagine that.
squatting in the house that we for free. As Angela Rye always says, we built this joint for free. So with more than $1 million on this ad campaign, I am curious, like, where is the equivalently matched? Because the mainstream media, again, although ill-framed, and I would argue against it, but they're constantly talking about black voters or, iffy on President Joe Biden. So it might make sense to me that you might make great efforts to reach us. I'm curious. I could have this wrong. I'm curious what you guys think about it.
Yeah.
Throughout this conversation, I do want to, I have a white woman and a white man who are talking about where they stand politically. So I'll play those sound bites later, but I'm just curious your thoughts off the cuff. Angela, what do you think about this whole, are you concerned? Because I'm concerned that the Democrats will shift policy-wise to accommodate these voters, but curious your take.
Yeah, are you sure they have not shifted?
Good point. Thank you.
I think what is frustrating about this conversation, because you were like, no new friends, is this is not a new conversation. This is another old attempt at trying to get people who are new to them again. And they're not coming back. There's no, it's the people that, the little kids that go to school and be like, will you play with me? And the little mean kid is like, no, that's what's happening here. They're not going to play with you. They threw a tantrum and said, if Nikki Haley didn't win, I'll never vote for Trump. Then they turn around and say, it's like, I'm just playing, I'm voting for Trump. But yet and still, they're going to spend all of this money and then come to us in the 11th hour, probably after the DNC convention, despite Jamie Harrison's best efforts to try to get them to invest in black communities, talking to black communities on a multi-year plan.
Jamie Harrison chairs the DNC by the Democratic National Committee.
He does. And despite his best attempts, I think that we are going to find ourselves back in a seat in August or September with them targeting us.
And he's a black man who ran for Senate in South Carolina.
And still white people run the party.
Yeah.
And so even though he is in a leadership role, he should have every say. He is brilliant, worked on Capitol Hill, was a registered lobbyist doing great work. I call him a thought partner, amazing guy. They're not listening in the ways that they should. This man comes from South Carolina. He knows what it's like to be in a rural community and ignored. Just like Andrew targeted rural black voters when he ran for Senate. He understands. So yet you would just think that at some point you would listen to the people who know these communities because they're of these communities. And instead, you continue to take the same old tired tactics and are surprised when you don't get better results. To Andrew's point, we don't have any choice but to grow the base. Yeah. You can't continue to do the same things, targeting the same people, and think that you are going to significantly increase your return on investment. Your investment is the same. It's to the same people who ain't thinking about you.
Yeah.
They're playing with the marbles that are on the table, right? No one's looking at the fact that of the marbles that are on the table, guess what, y'all? There is 100% of those underneath the table.
Yeah.
And this is a true statement. Half Americans don't vote. So you're looking at what's on the table, and of what's on the table, you can double that if you look under.
Yes, yeah.
And pick a couple up, right? So, and it's a risky strategy only because it isn't what the consultant class is convincing you needs to be pursued. So everybody who was part of the general traditional consultant class, at least in my race in Florida, in the primary, they were with a particular candidate and then got spread across as the field grew. thought we were ridiculous with our very limited resources. And I don't know, I can't remember the saying, one of y'all may be able to remember it, but basically the reason why we had to innovate is because when you don't have no resources and you got to make a way out of no way, creativity flourishes, right? You come up with all kinds of things. Water's going to go to the cracks. And so we found our way to the cracks with what we had. And in most cases, you're dealing with a set of finite resources. They can grow or shrink on the margins. And then with those finite resources, you and the consultant class, most of the consultant class is making a choice around where you want to spend those limited resources, right?
And sometimes they say, consultants don't look like us, and they're consulting on how to talk like us.
And guess what? Right. Even the ones who do look like us are often parroting a strategy that they were taught, often in the big houses of communications and firms and that kind of thing. So they then come in and you think you got a person who will understand what it means to speak to marginalized communities and move them the vote. They don't have a goddamn clue because that's not who they're dealing with. They were trained in how to deal with the marbles on the table. Yeah. And what I'm suggesting and what we did a lot of times.
You think sometimes what?
I think that our folks don't get chances. Like on your campaign.
Because they don't get chances, I get that folks aren't willing to experiment. My point is there was no pathway to victory for us other than creating a base that could take us there. We knew that the people existed, but it was then a very challenging fight, even for me as a candidate. I'm leading, my name's on the ballot. Why am I fighting with you about the resources I went out and raised to support the campaign, about where those monies are going to be spent?
Yeah.
So those choices have to be made. My plea to the party would be, because I get what's happening. What's happening is, do we take what we know is going to be there and borrow from it, Republicans who may not support Trump this time, and borrow from it, or do we take what we know is a group of people who would be with us if they voted, but they don't vote, but let's take the risk to grow that number.
Yeah.
Bet that they may come out and support us and take the chance of losing a race because we targeted largely communities who didn't have a pattern of showing up on election day. And that's a risk that a lot of candidates, I'm just saying,
I'm going to fight you on one thing.
You can fight me
on
that.
Not physical. Not physical. Andrew, I don't know if you remember this because you were very busy trying to raise money and prepare for debates. On your campaign, we hired a firm. I won't say the name on here, but we hired a firm that was more corporate in their marketing approach. It was a black firm. Yeah. The reason we did that is because of what you just raised. There are some folks who were trained inside the box. We went outside the box. This marketing agency did big campaigns for some successful corporations, and they took that same approach to Andrew's campaign, and it was very well received.
That's true.
So I just think,
I don't want to paint. You're right. I was wrong to paint everybody with a broad brush.
Yeah.
Because you're right, but those weren't people who grew up, who were trained up in the modicum of political advertising.
This is what it is.
Right? This was a different sector. And those folks are not being engaged largely in these political campaigns at the level that they should be.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is I think we can do both at one time.
You have to.
And first of all, if you're raising more money than has ever been raised before for the office of presidency, you're not being limited by whether or not you can talk to a base or grow a base. You can do both. You can walk, chew gum, grow a base, and then double down on the plan by
they cannot afford risk aversion. Like, to your point, like, how dare you have, how much was it again, Tiff?
$12.23 billion.
$12.23 billion
for political ads.
Like you, if you're
$1 million to go after Nikki Haley voters.
Right.
That is hardly the number, right?
Yeah, I think it's way more.
$30 million ad buy.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is
$1 million was just for the digital platforms,
and I bet you that's even under. What
that's all. That was all according to reporting. I think in the Washington Post.
Let's look at the ads and then say who they're talking to, and of that, then come up with that number. Let's say 13 million people, and then divide the total cost by 13. And that's how much they're spending on Nikki Haley and otherwise voters. But which is the lion's share of money that will be raised and spent.
This is what I'm saying.
On this much of the electorate.
And this is my point, right? Like, if you're in the fight for your life, I keep saying this election is a political war. It is not a campaign as usual. Then that means you have to take a lot of risks.
Agreed.
You have to take a lot of risks. You got to find people under the marbles under the table. You have to go in a way that you've never gone in before. You cannot listen to the same old, because this is different. It is just very different. If you're not just in a campaign and you're in the battle for your life. You're bringing in people who have all kinds of different tactics, have used all kinds of different tools. They're innovators.
Agreed.
And
People
you
might even disagree with.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that right now.
Yeah.
And I think that they've got to do that.
Well, can I just really quickly interject with some new reporting? It came from Pew Research just this week. Republicans have made significant gains among voters without a college degree. These voters are rural voters and white evangelical voters, not black folks. The trend toward the Republican Party among white voters without a college degree has continued. Democrats have lost ground among those voters and among Hispanic voters, too. Now, I do want to point out a voter's party affiliation does not always predict how they will vote.
Sure.
But Democrats have held on to key constituencies like black voters, younger voters, and they have gained grounds with college-educated voters. To me, it makes sense. If you see you are continuing to lose this white vote, why on God's green earth are you spending $30 million to go and say, please come back? And summarily ignoring and not spending dollars and not doing an audacious enough outreach to voters who look like us. It is a slap in the face.
Because the Electoral College is dictating.
And I just want to save y'all's mentions for a second, because every time we talk about this, Andrew, you are wise to stay off social media, because every time we talk about this, people are like, oh, y'all are trying to get people to stay home and not vote. No, we are saying the opposite. We are saying get out there and vote. And then on the other side,
invest in our vote.
Invest in our vote. And on the other side, Angela, because you get this a lot too, it's like, they say, y'all are putting down this administration and the presidency.
Crazy.
I think, Angela, you say it best when you say, if not for us, then who can make demands of this political party that we have helped uphold? For the small margin of people who are Trump voters, who are Republican voters, they're one and the same at this point, who, are filled with misinformation, those people are not large enough, who say, oh, see the light on the other side. There is no light on the other side. You have been bamboozled, my friend. So this conversation is important enough to us that we're saying we are advocating for you. You often say this, Angela, I'm thinking about black folks. Exclusively, I'm thinking about black folks. I understand that perspective. And we are saying this is what we demand of you.
Yeah.
Because you are the person or you are the party that is harm reduction. We are not advocates for this party. We don't really give a shit about parties. We care about what helps our people, what causes the least harm for our people.
And to that end, though, that is why I'm in favor of a strategy that says we can do both. I get that you're not going to get.
What do you mean do both?
You can go after voters who you believe are gettable, even though they have not traditionally been with you. And by the way, the go after is, if in the messaging, it's largely on a woman's right to decide for herself about her body. And it's IVF and those discrete set of issues. Now, when our agenda begins to start turning and resembling that of the Republican Party, then you've lost me at every single turn. I think you can go after low-hanging fruit on the other side, but you don't have to do it at the decapitation of picking marbles up that have rolled off or that have never been there and putting them on the table and investing in it over time. You can do both things. We're not dealing with a cash-strapped campaign on our side.
We
won't be dealing with
We are dealing with cash-strapped people, though. And I think the other
with
part...
idea-strapped people.
No, cash-strapped people, too. I think, to your point, going after people who may not have much, but they do have their vote, we can figure out ways to strategically remind people of how powerful that is, even when you're down on your luck on every other side. Like going into impoverished communities and starting where Tiff started the podcast today. Did you know that childhood EBT is under attack in your state? That's the ad you run. Because what it does is, going back to what Gary's doing, you're not just saying, so come vote for me. You're saying, call your governor first. And after you make that call and they don't do right by you, remember at the federal level, we will. We stand with you.
But guess what?
That's the ad.
And they ain't running that ad because
I got goosebumps. I know that's the ad.
They ain't running that ad because they know what's on the other side of it, which is the right in rapid response, ready to say this is the welfare state. And Democrats are going to protest. I'm saying this is what the debate is in the room.
No, I get
As we
you.
all know,
I get you.
They're making a calculation. Do we lose the persuadable middle if we double down?
You said leave the kids out. Let me tell you the ad I'm running. I would get a child or several kids who are diverse from the state of Mississippi. I would go right into the heart of Mississippi and have them talk about how they can't afford to eat. Run what they ate for lunch that day.
That sure
run
as
what
hell
they
would
ate
have been my ad.
Run what they're eating for the week.
Absolutely.
Talk about what actually is on their plate, and then run the ad saying that this governor said that this child does not deserve a hot meal, and then show that this is what the federal government supported. Yep. Now, you might not be able to overturn who is the sitting governor in the office, but you can certainly ensure that at the federal level they are held accountable.
Absolutely.
That is the ad.
I love that.
Because that is the truth. And so even if they come back talking about a welfare state, the kid comes back and says, no, it's not a welfare state, but I'm a poor kid and I deserve to have my dreams fulfilled.
Angela, I'm glad we just simulated likely what isn't happening in the room.
Yeah.
What isn't happening
in the room? Exactly.
I know, but I'm a dream. I'm a dream a world in here.
Listen,
baby, listen. Here's somebody in church.
No, we have this because we did this.
Yes.
This has
Your
been built
brilliant,
up.
yeah.
The problem is they
Correct.
consider it to be an anomaly and not a new strategy to wage war.
Right.
Your situation is an anomaly. That was you. You had a special. That's not true. We simply decided to see all of us and not just some.
There's a lot of
from your own experience.
Of course.
Yes. You know, this is why you have to have a diverse bench.
This is
you
my
have
frustration.
Candidates who think like how they were raised.
Yes. This is my frustration. I want to play these sound bites. There's a white woman voter. Can we play the soundbite from the white woman voter?
No.
You don't want to? Do we not want to? Okay. Let's play the soundbite from the white woman voter, and I'm gonna follow that up with the white man voter. Let's play that. Producer Nick, please.
I did vote for McCain. I did vote for Romney. Into 2016, I ended up voting for Trump. I voted for him because I really kind of felt more connected to the Republican principles. The behavior concerned me, but to be quite honest with you, I was a big Apprentice fan. The celebrity got to you a little bit. It did get to me.
Looking back now, do you regret that vote?
100%.
Angela, I want to swing on
I want to vote.
I want to swing on
this
you
is my point.
Katie.
This is my point. Katie has the privilege to treat this shit like it's a game, because as a white woman,
as the world
you are
turns.
you are never as impacted. I will say with
I was
reproductive
a fan of the
rights,
Apprentice.
with reproductive rights, there is an issue now, but it's like we never had that privilege. This is life or death for us. You were an Apprentice fan, and that's why you voted for this dude.
Facebook and apologized to my friends and family.
And
she's still about to vote for him again.
But this is who the Democratic Party is going
and
after.
They're going to be like, Katie, we want to talk to you.
You're looking at Katie
I am not
like
a
she
witch.
has an appeal. Now I want to play the white man. Let's play the white man.
I'm mad already. Why are you trying to make me mad?
I'm making madder. Listen to the white man. Let's play him.
I quit today.
I identify as an independent voter because I don't fit neatly into a particular ideological box. I have different thoughts and opinions on different issues. Some of them would be right of center, some of them would be left of center. For example, I believe and support, the Second Amendment of the United States. Although I do believe that there are certain classifications of weapons that we should not be allowed to have. I believe in the right of people to love and marry whomever they choose to love. I believe in bodily autonomy for women. So there's just a number of things I think, when I look at the issues and I consider them one by one and my thoughts and my beliefs, I just don't fit with necessarily one side or the other. And I think there are a lot of Americans out there like that.
Okay, I hate to break it to Texas Trey. You are a Democrat, my friend. Everything you just talked about, those fall squarely in. So when I hear that and I wonder, well, what was it that was so appealing about the Republican Party to you? And to quote the great American out of Florida who looks at the Republican Party and says, I'm not saying you were racist, but the racists think you were racist. There is some reason why this Republican Party, they appeal to identity politics. That was something that was ascribed to us, but they appeal to these identity politics. I hear these two people, and I'm like you, Angela. I'm frustrated. I'm angry because you are playing games.
I'm mad at Katie. I ain't mad at Texas Trey.
I'm not mad at Texas Trey, but it's like, get on the train because you're saying you're an independent voter and you're not.
If she comes along,
Katie is not coming along.
I want both of them because I think when we talked about
Andrew, get out.
No. When she said she had to apologize to family and friends.
Yeah,
I'm believing that she's got some family and friends who sit at the margin of impact, negative impact that Trump caused, right? And that Republicans.
Well, we tried to tell you, Katie.
But we did, but guess what? There's always room for redemption. We can't
Katie
wage
need to talk
this
to
on
Karen
last
and get their
year's
shit
war.
together.
We need to talk to Jesus.
We have to wage it on today's war. And right now, today, we need as many people as we can bring.
Where about the marbles under the table?
Oh, as
You're
many
saying
people
everybody.
as we
You're
can
saying
bring
everybody.
where
is
Katie
where we
is.
need to bring.
This is Katie. This is the marble rolling around
I'm
in
not-
Katie's head.
I'm
That
not
marble
turning-
is gone.
Let me tell you, I don't want just the
We're not
president.
gonna-
I
do
don't
you
want
think-
just
do you
Joe
think
Biden.
Katie is
I don't want just a Democrat holding down the White House. I want a Democratic Congress. I want a Democratic Senate. I want a president who will appoint justices who are in line with the mainstream of the American people.
But then we got city council
But
who were all those things.
of that. But all I'm saying is that if this is only going to be about propping up Joe Biden, and much of these ads are going to be about we'll
talking about the
got that,
ads.
right? Much of that is
Yeah.
going to be about it. Then we are not putting our eye on the ball of how do we get. So this EBT program came out of COVID through democratically pushed legislation because they were trying to embody in the government its ability to deal with a crisis that has been a crisis before COVID, and they used a good crisis. They used a crisis, as they say, don't let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
To put in policies that they believe will advance the Democratic agenda, but mostly will help American people. Now, it's no longer COVID in the way that it once was. They're trying to get this same policy, EBT, that 120, as part of the fabric of what we provide to every American, okay? But if you don't have a Congress that can move it and a president that can sign it, then what are we doing here? I agree with all of us that the long-term war.
I agree with all of us.
All of us, because we all are in agreement on this, that the
Yeah.
long-term war has to be bringing more of our folks, paying
It's
more
coalition
attention,
building.
and then delivering for them through the public
Is
policy.
Katie gettable to you, though?
Katie is not a part of the coalition.
That's my point. I think Katie is not gettable.
She's not.
But do
don't
you,
really-
Andrew, think she's gettable?
I think if she says she's gettable,
She
compete.
is not.
Why do you say she's not?
I don't believe Katie. Katie
I don't
seems
believe
like
Katie
But
either.
guess what? We don't have to believe Katie.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Are Katie and
No, we
Karen
don't.
gettable people
What
for
I'm
the
saying-
Democratic
No.
Party?
What I'm saying
Should they
is-
be spending
My
resources
Karen
on
is,
her?
not everybody
I'm
else.
sorry, but if you had electricity and a hurricane was coming and you had the opportunity to get a generator, would you say, oh, but my lights have been on every other day, and so why would it go away? You don't make that decision. You say, I'm going to get the generator for redundancy. But
I
in
would,
the case
but
of,
if the
I wanna make
generator's
sure,
broke,
listen, we're all going to go for redundancy. And all I'm saying is we make a big mistake when we write off everybody because they made a bad
That's not
choice
what I'm-
before. And we make a even worse choice when we decide that because a person hasn't shown the propensity to vote,
Yes.
not you haven't delivered for them,
Yes.
your agenda doesn't work for them, not that, but they
I'm
haven't
raising
voted
both
before.
hands.
I'm not going to invest any money in trying to turn them out.
Angela, I see both your hands are raised. Would you like to? I get the impression you
wanna
want to
kick him
contribute
out.
something
No, you
to this
can't.
conversation.
I'm kicking you out.
You
All right,
lose
what'd
elections
you
and
say,
you'll never
Angela?
govern.
I'm not. If I really was kicking you out, that is true. Here is my point. Andrew, your compassion in this moment is your Achilles heel.
It's not compassion.
It is.
You do have compassion a little
It's
bit,
winning.
and that's okay.
No,
It's
and
winning.
you're not going to
winning.
win with this.
It's
You're
winning.
doing the same thing that these white
Not
consultants
at all.
normally say. Yes, you are.
Not at
because
all.
you watch this clip of this white woman. Roll the clip again, Tiff.
I did vote for McCain. I did vote for Romney. Into 2016, I ended up voting for Trump. I voted for him because I really kind of felt more connected to the Republican principles. The behavior concerned me, but to be quite honest with you, I was a big Apprentice fan.
The celebrity got to you a little bit.
It did get to me.
Looking back now, do you regret that vote?
100%.
She's smiling and laughing the whole time,
Correct.
y'all.
Now, here's my argument. I'm putting on my counselor hat. This woman did not start voting for Trump with the celebrity. She did not start with him just because he was the apprentice. Her Republican ways preceded Donald Trump. She voted for Romney binders full of women. She said that she apologized on Facebook. She didn't go to the altar. This is not forgiven. She could be redeemed by God. She will not be redeemed by this party. I'm not asking her to identify as a Democrat. I'm asking for her to identify with her morals, to stand with her sisters regardless of race. And she cannot do that.
No.
She does not have that ability.
Yeah.
She does not care. She, in fact, probably only did this interview because she thought that it would get her attention because she likes celebrity. And since she tried out for The Apprentice
That's
and didn't
all
get
real.
selected, she was the apprentice on this program. Now, some people are redeemable. Maybe even some people who look just like Katie. Maybe some people on Katie Street. It is not Katie.
Yeah.
And all I am trying to say is the more time we spend time trying to get Katie instead of Kanisha and Keisha and Crystal and Kevin and Keandre, we blowing it. That's all I'm telling you. And I'm
you-
not saying
yeah.
that they
I'm-
don't deserve a hello when you walk down the street. But they do not deserve $1 spent on any targeted social media post.
I ain't got a hello
they
for
can get
Katie.
the general. The doors of the church are not open.
no
in
hello
this
for Katie.
case.
I got this for Katie.
And guess what? All I'm saying is I'm not a pastor or a priest, and I'm not trying to save her soul.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
no, I'm
you
not.
are. But
What I want is no.
coming.
It ain't coalition building.
Then what is it?
It's
This
winning an
episode is
election.
called Katie is not coming.
It's winning an election.
Not by
That's
any,
what this is about.
It's not
no,
winnable.
I'm not saying by any means. It is winnable.
No,
I'm not saying by any means.
But you're not saying Katie's
if what we are
winnable.
attempting
That's
to do
what
is
he's
to
saying.
convert souls, when we ask people to vote, we will lose every election heretofore. People aren't going to the polling place to be converted. That's not what they're there for. It's a transaction.
She's not coming.
I don't care about that woman.
I do. That's all this is about to me.
But so what are you saying, Andrew? Like, you know, it's not her individually, but
if it's all about that one woman, then we are never going to win another election again. What we have to be about is how do we put the numbers together on the board that will get us a president, a House, and a Senate so that we can then move the policy that we got to move to make my family, your family, and the people who we care and love, their lives better for the future.
That's true.
That's all I'm oriented with.
But
so whether or
Andrew,
not I'm converting this woman because she want to be a celebrity and a high princess and I don't care about that.
You have to.
You don't have to care.
Yes, you do.
I don't have to have agreement with you on every single issue for you to vote for me. I didn't go into rural areas of Florida asking for people to vote because I thought that they were going to agree with me on everything that I did. No.
Of course.
I
But that's
needed
not
them
what
to
she's
understand that by getting me, you're going to get more of what works for you than you will under the other guy. I guarantee
but
that.
that's not where she was.
I
Texas
don't
Dre
care
was there.
about where she
you
is.
You have to be because we have to be targeted, and that's the thing
But
that
you're saying
sets your
people like
campaign
her.
apart.
Strategy-wise, both and.
both and.
Both
okay.
and.
Wasting money,
Both
and then
and.
that money ends up being wasted on them and not targeted
And
to
when
us.
you have to make the choice, you put marbles on the table as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not just
agree with
saying
that
that. It's because I've done it.
Okay.
You did. That's why I'm shocked by this.
But
Katie
I did them
Broach.
both. I went
did.
into the most Republican part of Florida. I went
That's
to the most
true.
Republican precinct in the entire country.
Okay.
Twice. 3 times on the campaign trail. Not because I thought I was going to convert the people living in that ultra right-wing place.
You did. And what about
It's
the older
because-
people in the home?
It's
The little
because
bit-
in
remember the older
all
people in
those
the home?
places, there are people who can still relate to our experience, what we're trying to do, our story, and even if they don't agree, hook, line, sinker on every single major issue I want to move forward, they had enough to believe that I believed in it. And so they went and they casted a ballot for me.
I think it's fine for
It
him
doesn't
to go
make
visit.
sense.
Don't spend no ad money over there.
It doesn't make sense for me to walk right past them casting the aspersion that everybody who lives in that area believes that way. And that's why
I'm
I
not
shouldn't
saying
compete.
that
I
either.
know that's not what you're saying.
I'm
and I
talking
don't
about
wanna-
Katie.
Katie.
Woo!
Yeah,
I-
about it.
I-
well,
I'm-
now we agree.
I'm telling.
Now we all three
Yes,
of us
now we
agree.
agree. Okay.
We've gotten to
Case
agreement.
closed.
On that note,
Case closed.
we
I'm
are
going
going
to get Katrina.
Yes. On that note, that was a bar.
Not
And
that
when we come
Katrina.
back on the other side of this
Not
break,
that
we're going to talk about people who dropping more bars. But I love
You're
that.
going to be in
All
so
right,
much trouble. You're going to be in so
feel
much
horrible.
trouble.
I have
don't
no
really mean
control, guys.
Katie.
Yes,
They're
you
so good
Katie,
at it.
this ain't about
we're gonna,
Katie.
we're going to keep
Said 3
going.
times. I'm telling you,
Guys,
mother-in-law.
don't leave us. We're taking a quick break. We're going to be right back. The breaking news is our very own Angela Rye is the executive producer of The Crossover. It's still available to see on the on ESPN, so people can still watch it. And it was just nominated for not 1, not 2, but 3 sports Emmys. Those announcements just came out this week.
That's
So can we
awesome.
raise a glass?
Yeah.
Cheers to Angela. Congrats.
Water with bubbles.
Congrats.
I want to shout out Julian Gooden, who is an extraordinary director. If y'all don't know about Julian, you will very soon. This is not going to be his first sports Emmy. Or hope I'm naming it and claiming
Yes,
it,
claim that,
or
claim that.
nomination. So he is fantastic. Julian, thank you for letting me be involved. It was an amazing project celebrating the
I love
50th
that.
anniversary
Right.
of hip hop and its intersection with sports.
Congratulations.
I'm just
sis.
curious because I feel like I sit at the intersection of sports and
Yes,
hip hop,
you
and
do.
you didn't
Oh, my
ask me
Jesus.
to participate.
I don't know
but
what. Julian,
Okay,
why
well,
you didn't do that?
On part 2, the sequel, part
Yes.
2, or the
At the
prequel.
100th anniversary of hip
Perhaps
hop.
the prequel.
Yeah.
I can participate there.
Yeah.
And you're
seriously-
participating now. That's
Yes,
good.
I'm participating now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sports Emmy
right.
people, Native Land Pod talks about sports every week. Holler at us. We need to be a part of that nominating committee. But honestly, seriously, Angela, congratulations. I think it's amazing that you were nominated for 3 Emmys. And I know that you are, all 3 of us, I think, are such hip-hop heads. But you constantly, when Angela hosts Native Land Pod, y'all hear so many hip-hop puns. Like, that is your lane. And I love to see it. So congrats. And you're one of the most supportive people, not just for our friendship group, but for every common thread of friendships that we have. So I'm delighted to see you. Can I go with you to the ceremony? Is that allowed?
Yes, if they will let me have a +1. Yes.
Let's have a whole entourage with Angela when we go in. We're going to go in with a whole entourage.
Entourage is cute.
Yes. So, anyway, you're going to have fresh off the wires, folks. Angela Rye, a 3-time Emmy nominee. If you are an Emmy voter for sports documentaries, we expect Angela will be a 3-time Emmy winner. Crossover. It's available on ESPN now. So truly congratulations. But in all honesty, that is not the only reason exactly that we're talking about hip hop. The other news coming out of the hip hop community is this beef with Kendrick. I don't know if Kendrick's really in the beef, but J. Cole.
Kendrick is in the beef.
Okay. I haven't heard him respond to J. Cole yet.
Kendrick started it.
But I mean the apology, response to the apology.
To the apology.
So let me not confuse people. Angela, can you break down and explain to the viewers, because you probably have a better understanding of all this than I do.
Let's hear it.
So
what is the deal?
What I think the dated part is folks know that Kendrick was featured on a future Metro Boomin record where he took a little jab at J. Cole and Drake. And he basically said it's not top 3, it's top me. And made it really, really clear. J. Cole responded in 7-Minute Drill. I actually have Kendrick and J. Cole in my top 5. And I was actually surprised by the quality of J. Cole's verse. He started going in on Kendrick's albums. And I thought that he was not correct when he said that and I quote for my church folks, your second shit put to sleep, but they gassed it. And that is To Pimp a Butterfly. And I'm sorry, you do know that All Right is our anthem for all things black.
Right.
Yeah.
For those
like, what
who
are we
don't know.
talking about? So I think for me, I'm like, I don't know that that's accurate. So J. Cole, my theory of the case is, as dope as he is, he rushed to put out 7-Minute Drill. The EP is dope. This is, I think, the worst track on 7-Minute Drill, and I don't think it was that good. So I think that's why he apologized.
Well, before we get into it, I want to hear the apology, because in the apology, I thought there was a resonating message there that we should talk about. So let's hear the apology, and we'll talk about it.
One, I know my heart, you know what I mean? And like, I know how I feel about my peers, these two that I just been blessed to even stand beside in this game, let alone chase their greatness, right? So I felt conflicted because I'm like, bro, I know I don't really feel no way, but the world want to see blood. I don't know if y'all can feel that, but the world want to see blood. So I say all of that to say, in my spirit of trying to like get this music out, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I moved in a way that I feel spiritually feel bad on me. Like I try to like jab my nigga back and I try to keep it friendly, but at the end of the day, when I listen to it and when it comes out and I see the talk, that shit don't sit right with my spirit. That shit make me feel, that shit disrupts my peace. So what I want to say right here tonight is, in the midst of me doing that and in that shit, trying to find a little angle and downplay this catalog and his greatness, I want to say right now tonight, how many people think Kendrick Lamar is one of the greatest ever touch a microphone?
Best coast.
So to me, the thing that stood out to me was he said the world wants blood. And I think that is so true. I think that there is a coalition of folks who benefit when we war with each other. Yeah. I think hip hop has always been about social justice and about reflecting what's going on. And then somewhere in the commercialization of it, it does seem like it's about, how much money I got, what kind of car I'm driving. And I think I look at what's going on with book bans and everything happening in the country, and I consider J. Cole more of a conscious rapper.
He is.
Yeah. And
so is Kendrick.
And Kendrick, look, we could do our top 5. I mean, I think Kendrick is definitely up there. And so I hate to see people like this beefing.
Be beefing in
right.
public.
Like Kendrick and J.
You
Cole.
guys rap, like, as much as you say rap is about social justice and all of it, also is about flossing, and it is also about beef. That's
true. And it has always been.
It has always been. The first time it was ever taken, precedent that I know of that where it has ever been taken seriously to the point of death is with Biggie and Pac.
Yeah.
And I think what was interesting to me, as conscious as he is, even if it was figuratively speaking, J. Cole referencing heat under the seat and body bag. Like that's, to me, taking it too far. So I do
think
appreciate,
it's too far. Because I think there are unspoken rules about what's too far in a rap beef.
That's true.
But he had a mea culpa. I mean, he got up there and basically said...
After he lost.
Maybe, but he said on Reflect, in the rush to get this out, I took on two dudes who, I'm blessed to stand next to.
He was on Drake.
Well, maybe not. The point
he offered contrition.
It wasn't just contrition. Maybe. Brother set an example for how you walk back from a public beef.
Yeah.
Whether you win, lose, or draw, he was in it. They were in the mix.
Yeah.
Against each other, and Drake ain't said anything, but that's totally fine too.
I want to see if Drake gonna say anything.
Do you think Drake will say something?
If he says something, I hope he doubles down on what we just saw.
Well, good luck with that bishop of the Redemptive Sheep Missionary Church.
It's easy to be a big person when you're big.
But I think
he's big. Be a big guy.
Yeah. Drake is big, but also Drake to me is pop rap. Drake to me is not hip hop. Like Drake is the dude, is the light skinned dude that collected all the bras thrown at him at his concerts.
That's
literally a room full of bras.
There's a place. Look,
and when we honestly though, Andrew, when we talk
about
the
bras or place for Drake,
in hip hop, there is a place for Drake. I agree with that. He spoke to it. I think we're respectfully a little older, and I think there was.
I like some Drake songs.
Me too, but I think Drake spoke to that like insecure age crowd, the HBO series Insecure.
I think that you could be Burna Boy from the continent and still be more hip hop-ish.
Yeah. Well, I think if we're talking about like unspoken rules about what goes too far, the hardest that came out with the very first stanza was "That's why I FDOB, you fat M."
Well, that was Tupac.
That was right.
That's
so Tupac and Biggie. I mean, when you heard that, and then Kool Moe D and LL Cool J. Like since hip hop's inception, there's always been rap beef, rap battles, but it was really about who was a better lyricist. That's true. Breakdance. Cedric the Entertainer does a great one on that on Kings of Comedy, where he talks about the battles were different, and I just think now it's gotten. I hate to sound like one of those people. Get off my lawn.
No, but it
does seem it's getting away from what it was.
What's different is that you had this guy come out, J. Cole, and do a public mea culpa in that way, right?
I love that. I actually thought that was innovative. We hadn't seen that.
It can delve even deeper, right? I mean, the more these beefs go on, that's when there's heat. That's when it gets heat under it. Folks from this crew and this crew like that. Yeah, because it's never the artist that I'm worried about. I mean, Biggie and Tupac, that happened at the extreme.
Yeah.
But I would count them, hundreds of bodies between East and West Coast that probably fell before those two guys fell.
Very true.
Of course.
Right? Motivated and hyped up by the same music, right? And so all I'm saying is we got to get a brother salute, win, lose, or draw. That's the example that we ought to be seeing set.
I love it.
For
those who are listening,
but you really lost one. You just lost. But the EP is good. Shout out to the EP.
And for those of you who are listening and not watching, Angela is making all the faces. So please, if listen to us and then watch us.
She has a side.
I love that he did it at Dreamville. I believe that he did this apology because he lost.
Well, I believe hip hop always highlighted social justice issues, from NWA, the police, to self-destruction, if y'all remember that. Yeah. And so I would love to see more songs come out to highlight that. And I know we talk about a lot on this show. We can talk about very high-level intellectual discourse about what's happening on Capitol Hill and foreign policy. And we can also discourse about, who's our top 5 and rap beef. So I would say to the folks, find you a crew who can do both. And that's what you got in Native Land Pod.
And I hope that next time he go out and apologize, he's saying, please remember to vote. That's what I would like to see.
Very true.
Using these platforms for social justice and our collective advancement. But I do love J. Cole.
At some point, we don't have time now, but at some point, I think there is a discussion about some of these like 50-plus-year-old hip hop stars who were like pioneers who have shifted to a different political ideology. Like I want 1991 Ice Cube to meet 2024 Ice Cube and like how that's changed. There's something to that, and I don't know what it is.
I'd love to revisit our conversation on power. I don't think
the show or
just power. Period.
Power dynamic.
Power. Period.
The ability to achieve purpose or the use thereof, ma'am.
Yeah.
Power.
Well, if you guys want a 10-hour Native Land pod, we are always up for that. Because the conversation continues even after we're off the air.
There's evidence.
now that we have gone through the rap beefs and rap bars, it is now time for calls to action. Y'all always try to make me go first, so now I'm not going first. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Pop it.
I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know.
Andrew?
Sorry, I had another. We just talking about rap.
According to Andrew, can you now pop
Go
it?
ahead.
No,
For
I
the
can't
audience?
pop
No,
it.
don't.
I can't pop it.
No.
I'm
I can't pop it either.
Or no, what was his sound earlier? Pure.
Pew, pew, pew.
No, here's our pew,
yeah.
pew. His
With a
is
P and
off.
not a B. That's
My call to action is for you all to, I think this is my camera, for you all to please send in your questions, to please send in your comments. We like to stay engaged with you all. If you all disagree with us today on who won the Kendrick versus J. Cole battle,
like it.
So what? You can still share it, but so what?
Weigh in.
Call to
Weigh
action.
in.
Go vote when it's time.
Go vote on who is the best lyricist, or vote in general on all the things. Vote on all the
please
things.
stay active.
Just practice
Vote on
voting.
all the
Active across
things.
be
Vote
a
on
360
everything.
engaged citizen.
I like it.
Yes.
Big shout out to Jasmine Burney Clark, who is the new named state director for Biden in the state of Florida. And I call her out particularly because, one, she loves all of y'all and is a good fan listener to the show, but comes out of the tradition of community organizing and led one of the most successful community organizing groups in the state of Florida and got lifted into the political side. And the reason why I want to note this is a lot of times we look over the folks who are doing the laborious work of everyday organizing inside and outside of elections. Campaigns could do a hell of a lot better for themselves if they actually stopped engaging these, quote, strategists from season to season and get in, with folks who are really on the ground, know what they're doing, have relationship with community, and can influence the culture of the campaign so that the debate we had earlier about whether you pick marbles up or deal with the ones on the table, it's not a debate anymore. It's all of the above. And I think that's what she's going to advance. So if you're in the state of Florida and you want to get involved in the campaign, reach out to them. We got a good leader there, somebody we can all stand behind.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true about not, people who want to work in politics. You don't have to be the principal. There are so many. And no matter what career you want to pursue, work on a campaign. There's always too much work, not enough people.
Work in the community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. And work in the
Grassroots.
community. Angela, you do a really good job with teaching young women with your professional development program.
Young women and young men.
I didn't know young men
Yeah.
were in it. Oh,
Yep.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, every year has a cohort of folks.
Every
who-
semester. You guys
Every
are going to talk to
semester.
them soon,
Apologies.
probably next week.
Looking
So
forward to it.
that's our call to action
That's
from
right.
Angela.
I already
And
given mine.
if you're
You know
interested in
you
the
know
training,
who hasn't
get
given
it.
theirs yet? It's Tiffany.
Yes,
You're
me.
over.
My call to
that's
action.
Apply.
My call to action, I don't want to bring a damper, but my call to action is I feel really down sometimes, I don't know, just everything happening in the world, and I just get heavy and I can feel really sad. And I imagine maybe a lot of our listeners do too. Just feelings of isolation or helplessness, and you look at what's happening in Gaza and on social media, it's all this bad news. And since being with you guys today, but also last night, Andrew and I went to dinner. Angela rolled up on us. She'll drop that footage at some point. But my spirits have been lifted. It's so fun. And this recording today, you guys were informing me. I'm like, oh, these are things that I didn't know. And it lifted my spirit. So my call to action is when you feel down, do not isolate. Go be around people because we are not created to be islands. It really does lift our spirits. And you are not alone in feeling down. I completely understand it. And that's why I want to be transparent in the times that I feel heavy-hearted. And so for anybody who feels that way, go be in community, go see people. And if you don't have good, close, personal friends, go create that and
Go find you
volunteer
some.
work. And, if you do things out of love and not to receive love, love finds you. So I want to encourage people to get out there and do that and be in community as best you can. And if you ever feel truly lonely, welcome home, y'all, because you're never
Welcome home. Even to Katie from Andrew.
Well,
Jesus, have
I think
mercy.
Andrew
Welcome
left
home,
us on
Katie.
a proper note.
No, I think he has to go back and get that vote he threw out with that F-bomb that's going to be bleeped out.
Well,
we're getting the
beyond
vote.
Katie,
We're getting the vote.
if you are down, you are always welcome
Yes.
here. So, and if you want to get on camera and be seen, then like Angela said, hop on camera, send us your question or your comments if you want to weigh in.
Welcome
so
home,
thank you,
Kendrick.
everybody. Welcome home,
J. Cole.
everybody. Please,
Welcome
if you
home, J.
enjoyed
Cole.
the show, yes, welcome
Welcome
J. Cole.
home, Drake, I guess. can you please get rid of the room of bras?
To all of our listeners, please be sure to review and subscribe to Native Land Pod. Honestly, when you rate and review the show, it helps grow this platform. So we implore you to do that. We are available on all. Yes, implore. We need you to rate and review the show and rock with us and share the content. Some of these algorithms are trash, so please drop it in your group chat. Share it. Rock with us.
At the bottom of the thing now.
I'm just saying. It's not helping. But we're also available on all platforms and YouTube, and new episodes drop every Thursday. You can also follow us on social media. We are Tiffany Cross, Angela Rye, and Andrew Gillum. There are 207 days until Election Day. Welcome home, y'all. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.